Hello, haven't missed a week of this yet. This is Reddit Questions for another week. Here we go. Most upvoted question of the week was, what is the hardest character to mirror 1v1 in a DPS? When I say this, I mean by like a Widow versus Widow, Tracer versus Tracer, Hanzo versus Hanzo. Which character requires the biggest diff in skills to 1v1 a mirror character? Some characters are random, like how Tracer bolts have RNG recoil, maybe even Sombra recoil. Does she even have RNG? And some of them are more about your timing and aim, like Hanzo and Torb. Let me know in the comments. My instinctual answer is probably Tracer versus Tracer is incredibly mechanically intensive, and one of the most mechanically cool outplays you can do as a Tracer v Tracer is if the enemy Tracer sticks you with the pulse, it's about to blow up, but you as a Tracer, you blink towards that Tracer at the last second where they can't react, and then they end up dying to the own explosion of their pulse, but you also press recall at the same time and you survive. Coolest mechanical play, very hard to do, and in general, the 1v1 with Tracer is about tracking blinks, the melees, the tracking, everything's included in that. In terms of the most impactful, probably the Widow 1v1, because like in a lot of cases, if one Widow is dominating, picking your own Widow can do a lot, and if you instantly get rid of them with the one shot with the snipe, can change the game. So yeah. Is D.Va OP right now? I had a game where I played against a D.Va Genji Mercy and I just couldn't push. I got rolled and flamed in chat, and I know it's the end of the season, but I'm curious to know. I saw someone on Twitter say that they have a D.Va and we don't. It's GG. Is that what's going on right now? I didn't pay attention to the meta. I've also seen a lot of Doom, which is kind of odd to me, and I usually see a lot of Rein or Orisa. Well, you seeing Doom, Rein, and Orisa is just a product of what people like to play. This game is very casual with a big player base. You're not going to be able to find every single game with a player that knows how to play D.Va or whatever's meta at the current moment. But yes, in the sense that D.Va is very strong and very meta at the highest levels, yes, D.Va and Winston top two right now, in my opinion, mostly because of the mid-season tank patch. They gave D.Va an extra half a second on defense matrix without affecting the amount of time it takes to recharge it. So you're recharging at the same time pre-buff, but you get more matrix out of it, and her damage potential went up because they buffed micro missiles damage by like what, 30% or something like that, from 120 to 150. When you include all that with booster damage, shooting your primary fire, and launching, you know, your micro missiles to completely punish with damage, but also have a better defensive capability with defense matrix, and armor got buffed in the mid-season patch, and D.Va has like more than half of her health as armor. Makes it a no-brainer. D.Va very, very good. What heroes do you like to play against with your mains? What I mean is, if you main one specific hero like Ram, what are the heroes that when on the other team, even when playing at the same level of game sense of you, makes the fights fun and thrilling? To answer this, what do I like to play against? I main Ana and Bap. Those are my favorites, and a lot of Kiriko, but Ana and Bap are like my Overwatch 1 mains. For Ana, my favorite matchup is probably an Echo or a Pharah, believe it or not. I actually like playing against them because like I know I can pressure the crap out of them wherever I can, and that can be very impactful for my games. I've noticed that to be very dominant. And if I play Baptiste, my favorite to play against is actually Roadhog or Orisa, because they don't have shields. They just sit there as a big warm body for me to practice my 3-round bursts, and I'm constantly doinking, headshotting those tanks like crazy. And I get that dopamine hit every time I hit them in the head, and I build really fast amplification matrices, and life is good. What is a good secondary support when you're not playing Kiriko? I have been hard focusing Kiriko lately because I feel like she has such a large skill ceiling and can be used in a lot of different comps. That's true. I also just really enjoy playing her. However, I've run into matches where I feel like Kiriko just isn't the right pick. Who would be a good secondary support to start training that would cover areas that Kiriko doesn't? My second most played support is Zenyatta, with Ana, Illari, and Moira far behind him. Any suggestions? Interesting how you say, well, you feel like Kiriko isn't the right pick. Kiriko is one of the most flexible generalist supports where she can basically slot into any composition and no one would blame you, or no one would feel like you're not doing your job, because you can get value with Kiriko as a generalist support because she is a very adaptable and versatile kit. You can be a heal botting Kiriko, where you play for your Kitsune rush by like allowing your tank to take a lot of damage, and you constantly pump them, then boom, Kitsune rush. You can play very aggressive and go very DPS oriented on the off angles, go assassinate people. You always have that Suzu in your back pocket, and by simply making that pick alone, you're basically stopping the enemy team from picking certain heroes because of that threat of Suzu. Like if they're an enemy queen, they have to always be playing around your Suzu, and it probably deters them from ever playing her, for example. That being said, if I were you, maybe Baptiste or Ana. They play in similar roles. The next best is probably going for another niche one, which may be Zenyatta, but like Zenyatta's not in the greatest spot on this current patch, and your next best is Ana, so probably just focus on Ana right now. And if they don't nerf Illari in Season 12 in about a week, Illari wouldn't actually be a bad backup support where you just have like DPS potency, and Illari is a top support right now in my opinion on this current patch, so something to consider as well. Is Mercy really that bad of a support character? I've been playing Overwatch for the past few years on and off, mostly maining support, and as of the last year I just started playing competitive with my boyfriend. I mostly play Mercy since she's fun and I get good heals. Lily's been yelling at me to swap to another healer because Mercy doesn't do as much damage as other supports do. He says she's the worst healer because of this. Is he right? Should I be playing other healers? I usually swap to Ana, Moira, or BAP if Mercy's not working out, but she's my main support that I typically pick first. I have pretty decent game mechanics, but not the best game knowledge. I've only ever played for fun, but I've been trying to get better, so I want to learn what I can. That's interesting, because a lot of couple duos, interesting that he's yelling at you to swap when like a lot of couples would prefer having that Mercy because you know you'd be pocketing him as like an Ashe or a Sojourn or whatever, or Pharah or Echo or whatever DPS he's playing. So that's an interesting conclusion that he's jumping to, but like objectively speaking, he's not wrong. Mercy obviously doesn't do as much damage, and I wouldn't say she's the worst worst healer because she doesn't do damage, because there's certainly been metas where Mercy has been very good and she's never been a hero that does damage. But in this meta, being able to output damage, especially against all the Titan tanks, is pretty valuable, which is why Illari has shot up in popularity. Ana's very good because she ignores armor. BAP has always been a high DPS support as well. Kiriko at the same time. That's partially a reason in this current meta, but it's probably because the other supports are just overtuned in relative to Mercy. Mercy's kind of fallen behind compared to where all the changes have gone in the game with, you know, extra HP that all the heroes have. Her HPS is only 55 HP per second is what it was before they made everyone's HP go up in Season 9. So like percentage and relative wise, it hasn't kept up with the scaling or the power creep of the game. In addition, I think damage boost is at 25%. It used to be at 30%, right? So all those things contribute to why Mercy has kind of fallen behind indirectly across all these patches. So you're swapping to Ana is like a fantastic pick, but honestly, if you're having the most fun with Mercy, I feel like you should play Mercy. Like at the end of the day, you're just spending some time with your partner, and maybe you try to convince them to be like, hey, like I can pocket you. You pick a DPS and we'll work together. I don't really like how he's yelling at you, but hey, who am I to judge? How do you actually get better in this game? I'm really tired of being stuck in gold since the launch of this game. Feels like even though I'm doing everything right for playing support, I can never make any meaningful climbs. Reviewing my replays for deaths, that's good. Watching streamers, questionable, and using Vaxa for aim training, that's good. Adjusting my controller settings to get it feeling good for each hero, that's good. And knowing to use cover and high ground, making aggressive plays, and now even a VOD review or two, those are all very good. But nothing has moved the needle. In fact, I'm losing rank compared to my average this season. What gives? It feels like when I talk to the average player in my lobby, I understand the concepts of the game much better. When I talk about making space or not staggering or pushing through chokes by creating an alternate pressure point, often people in my game I converse with aren't even thinking about that stuff at all. I'm not sure how I can do any more than I already am doing with absolutely no payoff. Makes me hate this game so much. How do I break through this awful stagnation? Number one, let's break down what you've been doing. Reviewing your replay for deaths is one way to do it. The next best thing is imagine every like 3 steps you take. Okay, 3 is a little extreme. Keep it simple. Every 10 steps you take or every corner you go to on the map, pretend there's like a fork and like 10 different pathways and decisions you can make. And then when you go to the next junction or next significant area, there's another 10 paths you can take, like chess. And each one can lead to another set of decisions you have to make. Some are going to be very much better than others. Some are going to be absolute troll throw kind of positional moves in that position. And some can be very good. It's less about making the right decision and more about not blundering. I've always used this, if you listen to all these Reddit videos, people are tired of this example. First, let's say attacking Hollywood. You come up to that first choke point, your 10 pathways, what are your 10 pathways? First, go to that right, security room. You could walk through main, stand there. You could walk through main, turn right, turn left, and like present yourself like, hey, everybody shoot at me. That's probably the blunder. You can go down to the back alleyway where the mega health pack is. And then when you reach that corner, you have another set of decisions to make. Do you push forward? Do you wait? Do you go for the mega? Do you hide? You can go up the stairs to the left. And then when you go up the stairs, you have a choice to either peek over the corner, look back at your teammate to peel, or look to the left. Do you know what I mean? everything is a pathway. So deaths are like that significant thing that happened in that moment. But before the deaths, you had all these series of decisions you had to make. And don't worry about making the best one, just don't pick the worst one. More often than not, if you died, maybe you picked the bad one of the bad pathways across all the decisions you could have made. Not necessarily, sometimes a death is okay, depending on the value you got out of. Yeah, try to think of it that way and try to look at your replay in a more abstract way in that concept, and maybe that could help you break through. Now, watching streamers is a little questionable. Like even myself, we don't always have the best habits. Some of them are very good and educational, but a lot of times the decisions in their pathways that they're making would not translate very well for yours. You can see what looks optimal depending on what the streamer is doing, but they're doing that decision based on the context of the variables of their game. When I say like you could walk out on Hollywood and peek, maybe that works in that elo specifically because they have a person on their team that's setting them up that does something like that because their tracer is pressuring that angle in that moment, so it looks like the right choice. But if you did that, you'd be throwing because you just die. So watching streamers is a little tougher. You can pick up some smaller habits similar to the first part. Think about why they're doing it as best as you can, or maybe think about the bad blunder decision they could have made versus the one they decided to do and why it worked in that situation. Vaxa is good. Aim training is one part of the game, improving your aim, so that's good. Adjusting your controller settings to feel good for each hero, that's good. Using cover and high ground, that's good. This translates back to not replaying for deaths, but replaying for options and pathways. Making aggressive plays, same thing, options and pathways. And now getting a VOD review or two, that's great. Everything else is perfect. Nothing has moved the needle yet, but climbing in Overwatch is a slow, progressive thing. It's going to take a lot of time, and even if you lose rank, that's fine. Sometimes when you're learning a bunch of new things, you're focused on, okay, what am I doing? Because you just KarQ reviewed your VOD and now he told me to like think about maybe going on this path instead of this path. You're actually focusing on different variables and not like what you were used to in your average gold game. And you may be losing some games because you're taking one step back to absorb all this new knowledge and experiment with it and get better. So you're taking one step back, but hopefully it'll be the one step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward. That's what gives. Hopefully that helps you get better at this game. Do I push the objective as a tank if no one else will? I get that someone has to push the objective and people can take space. I usually play Zarya, so it's not like I'm very mobile and can quickly leave the objective to help the team. But if everyone else is pushing up and the objective is by itself, whether the cart or push bot, should I just hop into the objective since no one else is willing to? It depends. I would say usually no. You can also push up and then somebody else is gonna think like you and be like, oh, no one's pushing it, maybe I'll go onto it because no one else is willing to. Because generally speaking, as a tank and as Zarya, positionally, you should get the most advantageous position as you can, simply because you're limited by your beam range, which is 20 meters, and your secondary fire slow projectile. Past a certain distance, they can pretty much dodge every single one. So it's more imperative for you to get on the objective. But that being said, there are some situations where, depending on the tank you play, it could work. Like D.Va is fine to push for a little bit because she can just fly up and attack and get into the right spot as needed. It's not ideal, but sometimes like it's the only option, especially if there's nothing really happening. Like you just won the team fight, it's fine if you're on it for a little bit, you know? How can I climb with bad aim? I'm not good at aiming, and I practice, but I can't get good enough. I can play a pretty good Venture, a decent Cast, decent Genji, decent Sojourn. What more can I do to improve and keep ranking up without good aim? I really struggle with long range maps since the flex DPS struggles more on these maps, and I am horrible with Pharah. I mean, for most of the DPSs, like aim is a pretty big part of getting value. If you have bad aim, like maybe you should consider playing tank or supports that don't really require too much mechanical aim, like Reinhardt, Winston, Moira, Mercy. But if you're having fun, like who cares? And the only way to get better aim is to continually play the heroes that require aim till you eventually get good at it. So if you're a good Venture, hey, perfect. But long range maps, that's true. It kind of struggles a little bit. Cass is a great choice. Genji's kind of meh this season and Sojourn's terrible. I'd probably just focus on Cass. It's a pretty like high intensity aiming hero. And if you keep playing him, you'll eventually climb because your bad aim will become mediocre aim. Mediocre aim will hopefully become good aim relative to your rank. So there you go. So is there anything Winston can do against a Bastion? I've been doing really well of late, cruising into plat, playing mostly Winston and D.Va. I've been trying to lean more heavily into Winston, and when I'm doing well, one of two things tend to happen. Either they swap to Reaper, who I can usually handle. Like, does Reaper even counter Winston anymore? Not really. It's a skill issue with the bubble dance and you're chilling. Or they swap to Bastion, and while the counterplay for Winston against Bastion so far does not appear to exist. My counterplay so far has been swapping to D.Va, and that works great. Hey, that's a good choice. But it just feels like as a Winston, I can't keep a close eye enough on Bastion's in-between turret time, so I'm often at a mismatch on cooldowns whenever I get close. Is there anything I'm missing about the matchup, or am I just a bullet sponge for Bastion as a Winston? I mean, the biggest way to force his turret form is DPS pressure. Now, unfortunately, as a Winston, you can't really do that besides your little zap poke from long distance. So it's going to be a bit of a team thing where hopefully your DPSs are taking some angles. You really have to use natural cover as best as you can and maybe pressure somebody else. Believe it or not, this might be one of those things where instead of jumping straight into the Bastion where he just transforms and zaps your ass, is you have to sit there and just even like zap their tank for a little bit, force something to happen for the Bastion to get a little eager and maybe get a little aggressive. Like, oh, their Winston is like focusing the tank. Maybe I can blast them down. And maybe that's the opportunity for your team to kind of take advantage of that, to force that cooldown before you hard engage onto Bastion. That being said, the next best thing is timing it with your team, like a 3, 2, 1 countdown. You can jump raw into a Bastion if your team is in sync and somebody's at the right angle at the right time, because Bastion can only shoot one person at a time. Sometimes what good Winstons will do is they jump over the Bastion. Like I remember playing as an Ana, I had a Bastion on my team. This Winston just raw jumped straight over the Bastion onto me and bubbled. Obviously my Bastion transformed instantly, turned around, tried to pierce through the bubble and blast through it to try to kill the Winston. But the Winston jumped past the Bastion onto me and then ducked into cover really quickly. So my Bastion turned around to help, but the Winston was like breaking LOS of the Bastion, and me as an Ana, I'm like, oh shit, I'm still like running and trying to kite away from him. And the Winston was drawing the attention of Bastion, me as the Ana, and then their DPS came in, swooped in, and just absolutely ate up their Bastion because my Bastion was turned around and focused. So there is things to do, but that requires a little bit of teamwork. D.Va is probably the best counter swap. You're not wrong on that, but that's one thing you can do as Winston. And if you have Primal Rage, you can skip the whole ducking into cover and just pop Primal, and then go juggle and boot me off as an Ana, ignore the Bastion, and just go kill their backline and force the Bastion to look. If you can draw threat and aggression from Bastion, that's just as good as killing him, because you as a Winston are not the one who's gonna like 350 to zero him. Bastion's got 350 HP. He's got 20% damage reduction with Ironclad. If you sit there and zzz, it takes way too long. You're never going to 1v1 the Bastion. Remember that. You just want to hopefully draw his attention and create an opening for your team to kill the Bastion. Or, you know, you just go for their backline and the Bastion will probably die eventually because you killed their support line and your team is going to help you. Final question is, how do you choose the right support in a match? I can play everyone well except Lucio and Mercy. They're a no-go. Do I choose my support by which tank I have on our team or who the enemy tank is? I don't mind which support I play. I just want to help the team as much as possible. Can y'all help me choose the best picks for the best matchups? Appreciate the help. Well, when you start the game, you don't know who the enemy tank is, right? So you always start by picking your support based on the tank. That's my opinion. That's how I've always done it. If I have a Winston on my team, I'm generally not going to play Baptiste because it's very hard to reliably heal him because he's jumping across the map. I usually pick an Ana. A lot of your support pick depends on your tank, because your tank dictates the style that you're going to play. If you pick a Ramatra, you're playing Brawl. If your team picks a Reinhardt, you're going to play Brawl. If your tank picks Doom, you're going to have to play something pretty mobile to hopefully keep up with them. Maybe a Kiriko or a Lucio to complement them. The secondary support can also complement the first support, not necessarily the tank, but the tank does dictate the comp. So that's what you do first. That's how I pick my supports. Now that being said, there's like 2 supports that are pretty big generalists that can go on any team, and that's probably Ana and Kiriko in this meta. Both of them are flexible enough that they can be serviceable in almost every style: Brawl, Poke, and Dive. Maybe not so much Poke, but still acceptable. So there you go. Hopefully that answers your question, and thank you for watching, everybody. Peace.